welcome today's special guests to the show, Nick Buchanan and Calamito. Great to have you here on Navigating the Future. I'm your host, Red Curry, and today we're going to be talking shop, something I think that's pretty close to both of your hearts, the T-Kartor Iris solution. We don't typically talk shop or product, but today we're going to. Something that I think you're both very close to, but welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Red.
Thanks, Red.
So for the audience listening, people who are new to T-Kartor Iris really want to dig into what is it, and not just the marketing lines. I'm sure you guys have heard that from me because I'm the marketing guy. But from each of you, what is Iris at its core? And in a world of geospatial platforms and solutions and services, why was it needed in the first place? So let's start with Anthony. Talk a little bit about what is Iris at its core.
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably a good place to start. I mean, Iris at its core is effectively, it's a geospatial content management system. But we've added a lot of, I'd say, add-ons or goodies to it to make it more of a geospatial knowledge engine than really just a container of content. We realized that there was a need in the market for basically a very quick, easy, dirty way, a simple way to index all of the content within your holdings. So both content that is geospatial in nature and non-geospatial in nature, and be able to quickly sort through it, discover it, share it, use it in a way in which both you as a member of the organization would find it useful, as well as those who are not in your organization. And then how you use it is up to you. We leverage a lot of open standards, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute, to enable any organization, regardless of the technology that you're using, to be able to leverage the content that you discover inside of Iris in whatever way you find useful. So there are other solutions out there. I want to be very clear about that. We're not the only content management system that exists, but I'm sure as part of our discussion today, we'll talk a little bit about what our differentiators are, where we're going in terms of the future, and why we think Iris is a very strong candidate for those organizations who are looking for a method for organization of content within their organization.
Nick, let me throw this one at you. What makes it different from your perspective from a traditional spatial data infrastructure or geospatial platform? Iris at its core, what is it to you, and what do you think?
Sure. I think to kind of add on what Anthony just outlined, two of the things that really come to mind in terms of what sets Iris apart are its adaptability. I think the level of modularity and just being flexible and kind of plugging the right, almost Legos, if it were, being able to adapt to different user scenarios is something I haven't seen elsewhere. And then another aspect that sets it apart from similar solutions is it's not trying to be everything to everyone. It aims to do what it does well and connect other systems to form a better and comprehensive solution. So I think those are kind of two key takeaways in terms of what are differentiators for Iris.
When you talk about that, I also think of customer challenges and what most organizations have to struggle with, fragmented environments. Anthony, you talked about this before, and I think, Nick, you've mentioned it to me as well. And Iris was designed to solve that, as I understand it. So how exactly does it bring disconnected systems, security levels, and formats together in a way that's operational, not just theoretical?
Yeah, I think, the easiest way or the simplest way to think about Iris bringing everything together is to leverage the way we leverage standards, right? Nothing we do is proprietary in any way, shape, or form. We use open source libraries like GDAL and Orfeo and others to index content from 300 plus different sources, whether they're images and shape files and geodatabase stores and things that most geospatial people would be familiar with, to PDFs, Word documents, tweets, emails, things that don't necessarily have a context to them. We index all of them in a very open way, and then we provide access to everything that is ingested through OGC web service endpoints. So if you upload a satellite image into Iris, it doesn't matter what format that image is in. Upon ingest, we actually turn it and convert it into a web service, so that an open OGC endpoint is available to anyone who wants to consume that object. And so, again, very intentional. We did that to try and bring together disparate organizations, to bring together departments within an organization, and be able to share within a common language that isn't proprietary or locked down in any way, fully enabling an organization to take advantage of all the content it has at the ready.
Nick, I'd love to get your thoughts on that too, from things that you've been building and things you've been creating, the fragmented environments and some of the value you see behind Iris and what it was designed to solve in particular. I mean, just to add on to Anthony, your thoughts?
Sure. Iris is built from the ground up with the notion of having multiple, occasionally connected instances in mind. So you can think about this as it being designed to interact with sibling copies of itself. This inherent coordination required introduces a layer of redundancy and in turn allows for Iris, when it gets to less than ideal scenarios, to degrade elegantly as resources such as network bandwidth and things like that start to diminish. So it's adaptable and built from the ground up.
One of the things that drives me nuts is the security and accessibility problem, right? Does my solution work well, and is security a hindrance to that? Does security become a problem within the organization when I adopt that? Is that going to hurt what my business does? How does Iris balance those, especially in highly classified? And Anthony, I know you and Nick have both worked on mission critical environments where failure is not an option, but you've got to bake that in as well. So security and accessibility, those are the things that we don't want to give up on either of. Talk a bit about that, maybe.
Yeah, I think to start, it's probably worth noting something we probably should have opened with, and that is Iris is a containerized platform. It is truly cloud native, built from the ground up with containerization in mind for modern cloud native architectures. Now, why does that matter? As Nick talked about, it's in a way sort of self-healing. It's designed to scale elastically up and out. And it's designed to integrate into your sort of CI/CD pipeline and your DevOps workflows if you're at an enterprise level. What that means sort of functionally is it's a piece of a larger ecosystem. We have controls in place for managing the way data moves, within the ecosystem, within the Iris platform itself, and within the sort of parts that fit or add on to the Iris platform. And then we rely on the overall DevSecOps architecture for security at the enterprise level. We can do role-based access control. We can certainly subscribe to Active Directory and LDAP and PKI and all these other identity management capabilities that are out there. And then we can integrate with different control mechanisms for moving content between network levels. Let's say you have an instance of Iris, at an unsecure level. You want to move to maybe a secure enclave. We have connections and business relationships with those integrators that do multi-level security transfer and move things, from a lower level of security to a higher level of security. And then the last thing I'll mention, the concept behind Iris was that we wanted an entire organization to be enabled and all of their content to be available to all users. And so if you have a distributed environment or a system that maybe has multiple departments in it, and you have Iris installed as different instances, maybe physically or geographically located in different areas, if they're on the same network, they all can actually collaborate with each other. So if I make an addition to one instance, that addition, maybe adding data or removing content, whatever the case may be, gets propagated to all other instances that are connected. And so it becomes a really easy way to kind of keep things in sync. So if you have, let's say, a one-way transfer set up where you make a change to everything at the lower level and you want that change to propagate to the higher level, you can set up controls that every change you make here sends effectively a change message to the instance at the higher security level. And so it's a very, very, what we think, a modern way of not just deploying software, but then ensuring that an organization's content remains up to date and authoritative at all times.
That's awesome. Nick, any thoughts on that before I ask you a pretty fun question here for me?
Sure. I think Anthony did a great job of covering all the highlights. I'd say there's a couple of things to kind of build on that. I would add that the auditability that's ingrained in the substrate of Iris goes a long way. In this context, auditability is achieved via taking a record of actions that are done within the platform that can be extracted and referenced later in time. So auditing entities are able to kind of dig into that forensically as needed. And then also something we haven't mentioned is Iris has built-in support for NATO metadata standards, and that can be extended to other formats. And this supports the use case that Anthony was giving an outline of in terms of being able to go between various networks that may have disparate levels of sensitivity with the data that's being moved around.
And what I'm going to touch on a few buzzwords here for a minute, like cloud native, scalable, things that I, as a marketing guy, love to say. I love to say scalable, cost effective, right? But T-Kartor built Iris to be cloud native and scalable, from what I'm understanding from what we've just talked about, and even down to the single board computer, as I understand it. But what does that flexibility mean for the users in the field, in the cloud, and everywhere in between, right? Because when we say scalable, when we say cloud native, let's get into that a bit. Iris was built for that, but tell me a bit about that and everywhere in between those points.
Go ahead, Nick. I'll let you start.
I'd say even predating the days of us dipping our toes in the cloud, so to speak, Iris is built from the ground up as a highly modular architecture, meaning that, again, you can kind of put it together like Lego bricks, right? You only create and craft the solution that you need for a particular scenario. And what this does is it improves scalability, but also allows us to focus on these individual components to allow them to do well, but still operate in the Iris ecosystem, which has definitely paid dividends in certain scenarios where we've had to deploy different instances. This also allows us to efficiently adapt to use cases that weren't initially considered for Iris, right? So if we've got a particular industry or use case in mind, the modularity allows us the flexibility to kind of adapt and plug in the pieces that will be viable for that particular solution, which is another thing that sets it apart. And yeah, but as we have migrated to being a container-based deployments, the scalability and versatility has just increased organically by an order of magnitude. So that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, it's probably interesting to note for those listening that when Iris was first deployed, it was effectively a Windows platform, right? It was designed to work on at the time what was the most popular operating system within enterprise architectures. But as the need for scalability and elasticity, right? Those two buzzwords, the ability to be redundant, to have high availability so that if one part of the system goes down, there are other parts that can sort of handle the load and take over. For those instances that require additional compute, to be able to scale to additional compute resources on demand and then scale back down when you don't need all those resources. Those are all things that are demanded of enterprise architecture today. And so, the Iris team that engineered the solution sort of had to take a hard look and say, well, this can't just be a Windows deployment anymore. We've got to move to modern architectures, and the way modern applications are built. They're built using containers and containerized backends so that the scalability and the high availability and the reliability is there. That actually had a secondary benefit to Nick's point, which is we could now make this extremely modular, make it super small and focused when it needs to be, and then expand upon that when we have the resources at an enterprise level. So whether you're running a ruggedized laptop in the field, whether you're using an embedded instance on maybe a Raspberry Pi or some other single board computer, or if you're putting it on a Dell server inside of an enterprise environment, the technology is going to work regardless. And we've worked very hard to make sure of that.
Anthony, I'm going to quote you because this is a fun thing for me to do. But
this will be
features,
interesting.
functions, bullets, and benefits, everybody's got them. But my favorite, Anthony, is so what? And I say that because who cares, right? What is the absolute impact that we're going to have on people, process, technology, and the places and spaces that we're here to help build, create, defend? If you could share a moment, maybe it's one that exists or one you envision, a use case, a deployment where you think or you've seen where Iris can make a measurable difference. And that's the impact, right? Features, functions, bullets, benefits. So what? Every company's got them. There are hundreds of companies out there, but something that sticks out with you. And Nick, I'd love the same from you after, but since I quoted Anthony, I'm going to say the so what. What is that impact, you think?
You got to be careful. It's never usually good to quote me. So I was kind of wondering where this would go. The four most important words in product are so what, who cares, right? No one's going to buy it if there isn't a so what there. Couple quick examples that I can share. There's obviously some I can't, just due to relationships that we have with customers, but Iris is actively deployed. It's what we in the U.S. call a TRL level 9, a technology readiness level 9 solution. So that means it's actively deployed both commercially and in government. Some of the use cases where a real so what exists, the technology is being used actively by defense forces in Europe. It's being used actively in the field. It just got done being part of a large military exercise called Arctic Strike, which was a Baltic region sort of exercise. Several countries got together, and Iris was the platform used to basically bring the data piece of that together and allow sharing of data between the organizations that participated in the exercise. It is being used operationally, not just in an exercise, but truly operationally by at least 3 different defense forces in Europe. I won't name who they are. But at the same time, it's also being used in commercial cases. We have an arm or an extension of Iris that focuses on creating cartographic products. So think maps and charts, right? Things that pilots use to navigate or ship captains use to navigate. You can effectively take all the content in Iris, add on rules for cartographic rendering, and then produce in a very automated way the cartographic products needed to get from point A to point B safely. And so we have an arm of the company that does that. There's another arm of the company that supports something called wayfinding. Quite literally, we are the technology used to create the kiosks that say you are here and show where all the major attractions are in large cities like Toronto, Cleveland, New York, London, and even parts of Austin. And so there are lots of use cases where organizations need to be able to index their content, share it in a very simple and open way, and then use products and services on top of that content to create decision aids or make decisions that affect people in a very real way.
That's great. And I'd love to get your take, Nick. Impact. Where do you see the potential impact? Maybe some things you've envisioned for the future that way, or maybe things you see it do today. Are there any things you want to share?
Yeah, right. I think immediately the work that we've done with the DMine Foundation comes to mind, right? The situational awareness that Iris provides for the fantastic work they're doing is definitely something to be proud of.
Mm. Now I get to ask you the question I think I've asked you both before, which is a fun one, but if you each had a magic wand, and we'll start with you, Nick, I can't think of a better way to say that, right, than a magic wand, but and you could instantly add one capability or partner integration into Iris tomorrow, what would it be? Why would you do it?
All right, magic wand. I think I'd have to go with incorporating a technology along the lines of what Apache Sedona or Wherebots provides as a really intriguing integration. The out-of-the-box analytic capabilities that interact with the spatial catalog that's created is extremely powerful. If I had a secondary use of that one, it would be to really have us work at lowering the barrier of entry to users connecting Iris to various data providers. I think particularly the myriad of space-based sensor offerings that become available in the last decade or so to the public. I think there's a ton of potential there. Not that we can't integrate now, but I think almost if you have Iris, it's just kind of a plug and play type of thing, just making it easier. But that's, yeah, that would be my 1 and 1A if I had a wand.
I'm waiting for you to say something like, if I get the magic wand, I'll pretend to answer that question, but just go do something I want to do with the magic wand, nothing to do with Iris. Anthony, I'm going to hand you this dangerous magic wand now and ask you, what are you going to do with it?
I'm gonna wish for more wishes because I think there's more than one that I would love. No, I listen. I think the Iris team is doing a great job. Nick's obviously an integral part of that and building sort of what is the roadmap for the future. But some of the things we're focused on that we can share, we are working on integrations with commonly used software platforms. So things like ArcGIS and QGIS, right? 2 systems that are used very heavily by geospatial users every day. How do we make our content management store or our knowledge engine, our geospatial engine, easily accessible inside of those applications through the use of plugins or some kind of integration? So there's some things cooking there. I won't share too many details, but certainly stay tuned. So I think that's one way, and that talks to Nick's accessibility point. The other thing to think about is obviously the environment's always constantly changing. One of the things that folks who are familiar with the geospatial market would understand is the transition from your traditional sort of file-based data stores, things like shapefiles and geodatabases and KML, to more cloud-native formats. So things like STAC, the Spatial Temporal Asset Catalog, and cloud-optimized geotiffs and things like that. We need to be able to support that. GeoBark is another format. So we're working to make sure that we are not just supporting the now, but we're able to support those needs in the future. And so those are some additional things that we're bringing to the fray. There's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to ensure not just scalability and elasticity, but performance. How do we ensure that we're constantly making the platform more and more performant, supporting more and more use cases, more and more requests, more and more users, right? Concurrent users, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll say the engineering team is working very hard to make sure that the product is moldable and is something that modern and future environments will want to be able to take advantage of.
It's that interoperability article that you wrote, without compromise, and that connectivity. And I like to hear the ArcGIS, the QGIS and the Iris all lumped in there. But you're thinking about the way we're going to work in the future. It sounds like the way that the world wants to work in the future, and how they want to connect, and when they want to connect, and to what they want to connect to get the very best results for the jobs that they have to do and the people that they have to serve. And this was really exciting. And the most amazing part is we kept this to 20 minutes. This is a good quick chat for our audience, which they love, and I hope everybody's enjoyed hearing from Nick Buchanan and Anthony Calamito, two guys who are really driving T-Kartor and T-Kartor Iris and so much more forward. But I want to thank you both for joining. Really appreciate your time, talent, all the expertise you've shared. To our audience, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Follow us on our LinkedIn channels. You're now watching us either on YouTube or Spotify, but you can find us and ask us questions through our website at tkartor.com. And like I said, we want to keep this conversation going. We want to hear from you, the audience. We want to hear what challenges you're tackling, what problems you want to solve, and how we can help you do that. So thank you both for joining me, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. I look forward to the next episode. Cheers, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.